Hello, everyone. This is Heather with Magnificent Mamas. We are joined here today with author Amy Joynt. Amy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Joynt, and I just published my first ever book. It is to support women with a late diagnosis of ADHD. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us today. ADHD is a topic I can definitely relate to. My daughter has ADHD, and here lately I feel like I do too half the time, so I wouldn't be one bit surprised.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of women out there noticing that we don't look the same as young boys who are often diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to just kind of describe our difficulties and everything we've been, trying to do our whole lives, that we just get tired. And so a lot of us are being diagnosed later.
I agree completely. That makes total sense. Do you want to go ahead and tell us a little about your book?
Yes, I'd love to. So my book is a self-guided journal for women to process a late ADHD diagnosis. The title's Unique Minds. And I wrote it at first because, frankly, I couldn't find such a resource. I was diagnosed at 39, and I had just kind of gone about my business and one foot in front of the other type thing. And there was kind of a lull in my career about a year ago. And I thought, why is this so hard? This is always hard. Everything's hard all the time. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Maybe ADHD has something to do with why I'm trying so hard and why I feel like such a failure. So I started to really process my diagnosis. And in part of processing, I was reaching out and looking for resources. And I could not find a resource that would help me process my diagnosis. I found tons about organizational things, strategies, tips, tricks, that type of thing, but I couldn't find what I was looking for. And so I wrote this book around the stages of grief following a diagnosis, and it aligns with Earth's elements, and I just think it's absolutely beautiful. It's nicely illustrated. There you have it. And it was released about 3 weeks ago, and it was actually supposed to be released on Leap Day, but I messed up and pressed submit too quickly, and that's my ADHD. So it's been out for a few weeks now.
Yeah, I mean, that happens. Sometimes we go ahead and do something too soon, or sometimes the publisher does something too soon, which the person I was talking to earlier, they published it too soon. It must be one of those days in regards to discussing that. So do you have a background in writing or anything like that?
I don't. I actually thought I was a terrible writer and told myself there's no way on earth I could ever write a book. But I do have my doctorate degree, and I have been in public education for 14 years. And so I do have quite a bit of education. But again, I think a lot of us just kind of minimize our accomplishments, and that was true for me. So I do not consider myself a writer, but I do now, right? And it's been pretty healing.
That's important. You need that. Everyone needs healing. Do you feel like you're reaching these other women who may be experiencing ADHD?
Yes, I'm trying. I'm trying my absolute best. So I have organic leads from social media and that type of thing. And I feel like the more I reach out for the marketing of Unique Minds, the more I do meet women like me. And so frequently, like I'm doing a book signing this weekend, and the owner of the bookstore said, "Oh yeah, that's me." So I think I'm kind of getting the word out in multiple ways, but there's just so many of us out there that I really hope to expand my reach, because I don't want people to feel like there's nothing they can do.
What do you recommend that they do?
Good question. I do recommend walking through the stages of grief. And I say that because, especially as a person late diagnosed, we've gone our whole lives telling ourselves stories about who we are and our flaws and our challenges. And now we have to rewrite that story. So, walking through, for instance, denial, there's a phase of denial that I know myself and a lot of women have to go through, which is, maybe I don't really have ADHD. Maybe I kind of fooled them and I answered all the questions right. It's like, no, wait a second. Right. This denial stage, and I think if we make the mistake of not going through these stages and not processing them, and then that means that we never do take the driver's seat of our lives. And so as much as, medication could work for some people, not others, whatever, that's not what this is about. It's about offering more than a medication intervention.
Oh, yeah, I agree completely. I don't think medication is right for everybody in regards to ADHD medicine. Now, life-threatening medicine that you need to live, then yeah. But we don't medicate our daughter. That's ADHD, that's 15. We tried medicating once and she had the tics and stuff,
Oh, yeah.
So we took her off that and we did not try another medicine. And that was, gosh, how many years ago? Probably when she was in 3rd grade at least, and she's 15 now. So we just work around, how to get her to pay attention for those short intervals of time type of thing, and what learning strategy works best for her, which in public schools can be kind of a challenge sometimes.
Yeah.
So homeschooling definitely helped. And I love seeing the improvement in her learning. It's awesome. It's an awesome experience.
Good. And she still, she still has this label that can help her kind of I know a lot of people will naysay about, well, you don't need a label. And for me, I feel like I did. I feel like it helped me understand myself better. Mm-hmm. And, whether it is, and I do take medicine, and I frankly myself, I do know I have to, because unfortunately, and it is embarrassing to admit, but without medication, I was self-medicating, and and that was my life.
A dark path.
It was a dark path. Yeah. Thank you for giving me words to that. It was a dark path.
I understand. And this is a safe spot, and I did a podcast about mental health recently involving one of the author's books. And I understand the darkness. I'm on depression meds and anxiety meds. So I understand the necessary. I think, like I said, everyone's different. But for me, my seizure meds, my anxiety meds, my depression meds are all very important. The quality of living better. So this is your first book that came out a couple weeks ago. Do you have plans to write another book?
I absolutely do. In fact, I am at this point where I need to market Unique Minds, but I'm also have an itch and a voice inside me, and I already have the title and the layout. I have many, many ideas of what's next. And, certainly Unique Minds being written for women is wonderful. And it hits a gap missing in the literature. And I also know there are adolescents and there are boys and there are other populations, target readers that I plan on writing for next.
That is awesome. You'll reach so many people, and nowadays it seems like the ADHD community has definitely grown, so to speak. They've realized more people who have it, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think learning how to live with it is better, and having the best quality of life that you can.
And I work at a high school right now, so I see lots of adolescent boys, adolescent girls, and kind of living in a neurotypical world. People neurotypical might say, well, let's get this person a calendar or a schedule. And I'm like, oh my God, it's just, I don't mean to be dismissive. That's a very kind thing and a very considerate intervention, but it's only part of the story of ADHD.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean, I have to, with my daughter, break down tasks one or two things at a time. I can't sit here and be like, okay, you need to read this, and then you need to come over here and read this, or take the trash out, fold the laundry. You can't add a bunch of stuff. Lists work well for her, but smaller than visual type of things, I guess, too.
Right. Do you find that she struggles with any type of emotional regulation or kind of negative self-talk?
I wouldn't say so, honestly.
Okay.
She was diagnosed with ADHD when she was young, super young. And so she's always known she's got ADHD and accepted it. She's also dyslexic and she's got, a little bit of learning disabilities, but she accepts those. And she knows it's okay to be different. And she, isn't negative towards that, if that makes sense.
It sounds like she has a strong social environment, family environment. That's huge. You're able to talk about these things with her. And maybe that's just kind of helped her kind of gain some skills along the way and tools that she maybe doesn't, have the type of experiences some of us who didn't have a language.
I understand completely. And I just want her to grow up and happy with who she is, and she doesn't have to be anybody else or act like anybody else, and she just needs to embrace herself, be the person she wants to be. I encourage her independence quite a bit, obviously within reason. Like, I don't let her wear too provocative of clothing, but she does have her own sense of style, and not that really, I guess, relates to ADHD or whatnot, but it's an important thing because, nowadays all these teenagers want to dress the same and be part of the in crowd, so to speak. She can just be herself.
Yes, that's so beautiful. That's so empowering.
It is. She's definitely, I love her style. She's got this eclectic, maybe almost some of the stuff she's interested in, clothing wise, is 70s, what you'd think of in the 70s, and I just love it. My husband was calling her a hippie the other day, and it was just so cute though, because she had her high-waisted jeans on. She's tall and thin, and she had this shirt on that you would expect to see in the 70s. And it was just so cute, though. She pulled it off. It was just awesome. And so many, especially, this in school, people get bullied for their style and, what they wear. I remember it when I was in school. And just to know that she can wear whatever she wants to wear and be whoever she wants to be is positive. That's what I want, is more positivity in the world.
Yes. Well, outstanding job.
We need to talk about you, though, so... So do any of your students know that you have published this book?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I haven't had explicit conversations because I want to be very mindful of that type of boundary. But I'm on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, and
all the kids are.
But they probably don't think Miss Joynt is doing anything that cool because I didn't come to work. But there will be times I've wondered, to what extent do I want to share? And right now, I've been good at being able to empathize with students I work with and say, I know how it feels to be neurodivergent. And I just kind of leave it like that because it truly is about them, and they're teenagers, so they're cool with it being all about them.
Yeah.
But I haven't needed to, be very explicit. And I do want to be mindful that this is my 9 to 5, and my being an author and being a coach and a supporter of women with ADHD is another job. But I do want to kind of keep those as separate as I possibly can, but I still want to help them, I
think just being a positive, supportive role model, so to speak, is something that a lot of people don't have. And, maybe they'll just learn from you and take away positivity and experience, even just knowing that someone's there if they need someone to listen to or support them. I think that's important.
It is very fulfilling, and there's a lot of demands when you're in high school, and 6 periods a day, and all the teachers. And I think, just me talking to them about their interests, and that my job truly is to help them. Truly doesn't matter so much if I have ADHD or not. I do think at some point it'd be nice to talk about my self-publishing journey with them, because I've learned so much, for people who are writers. And I'd let them know that piece, that writing can be beautiful and it can can be healing, and it doesn't have to be, so technical and laborious for them. And I think they like that too.
So in your book, did you do it more like a self-help, or did you do more like your experience and you dealing with this?
Oh, such a good question. It's actually both. So I did my best, following all the guidelines of what I should do. And part of the process was having 2 beta readers. And one of my dear friends, Lena Berry, was a beta reader, and her and I sat down over the summer, and she had said, Amy, you got to bring more of your story into this. And I'm like, okay, like I had some sprinkled in, but she said, people are going to want to know you. And so that beta reader process was so helpful because I do infuse my story into the journal significantly. That I think really just helps me, again, just be completely vulnerable. But the self-help portion of it is like, I'm walking this walk alongside you. Mm-hmm. And here's how it felt for me when I was diagnosed. And here is all the pain and suffering that I have gone through. And then, flourishing from this diagnosis. And so I do share more because of Lena's feedback. And I'm appreciative of her for doing that.
Oh yeah, everyone's feedback. Well, maybe not everyone's, but when in regards to beta readers, it can change the story, it can make it better and improve so much. We've all got to be thankful for our beta readers.
Yes. And it's so much better than it was now that I did infuse more of my story. I got more vulnerable, right? Like there were times, there's a section where I talk about, part of the prompts are to write letters and to write a letter to your previous self, your younger self. And prior to speaking with Lena, I didn't have my letter in there, and I added it, and which makes it so a little bit scary because it is my personal thoughts, but it also, I think it'll relate to the reader.
It sounds like it would for sure. In the stages of grief after discovering this late diagnosis, so before you get to the acceptance, how do you have listed, what all stages do you have listed, and what would you say the hardest stage?
I feel like I want to answer the latter part of your question first, but I'll start with the first part. So denial is our first stage, and then we have anger, sadness, bargaining, acceptance, and flourishing. So I read a lot about grief, and I made it less formulaic because it is tied to nature's elements. And so I wanted it to have this artistic nature kind of sentiment. And it does, because there's beautiful illustrations in it. And it's really kind of designed for readers to color and to process and to hold and to carry. Yeah, it sounds really beautiful. So, Jema Zollinger is the illustrator, and she's a friend of mine who is also neurodivergent. So it's been a labor of love for the two of us for sure. The hardest stage was anger and sadness, and even still to this day is anger and sadness. It's really strange to have these like incongruent feelings. Like I feel empowered, but I feel regret. I feel scared, but I also feel brave. This anger and sadness stage that I kind of put in together with the element of water is still the hardest, because there are so many times that I think, oh my gosh, I didn't see how amazing of a person I was when I was a teenager. I always saw I wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough, pretty enough, all the things. Hard to describe. I feel
negative.
Right.
But I think, any adult looking back on their teenage years, if they're being honest with themselves, would feel similarly about that, whether they're ADHD or not, because we've all got our insecurities and whatnot. Embrace the awesome person that we are. If you had gotten a diagnosis earlier, your life would have been different. Do you think you would be the same person you are today?
Well, that's a good question. I think, I'm glad I didn't get a diagnosis earlier, because now I am, because I am happily married and I have a lovely 7-year-old daughter. And I went through the trauma and the grief and the difficulty to get where I am. So there's definitely no regret there, but yes, I think my life would be different because the medication helps me and the diagnosis helped me get out of my head in my stuck thinking and help me with impulse control issues. So like I had shared, I was engaging in substance abuse, and I just think about the years I could have gotten back from my life, had I not spent that time.
If you could give women, listening one piece of advice, what piece of advice would you give them?
I want to say something so profound and be like, drop the mic or whatever, but love yourself. Absolutely love yourself. We are with us for the rest of our lives.
We can be our own worst enemy, but we should also be our best friend as well. Thank you, Amy, so much for being on our show today, and we appreciate it, and we have loved getting to know you better and hearing more about your book.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.